Sometimes in your applications, you might be dealing with a list of objects. For example, the list of products in a shopping cart, or the list of colors the user has selected. In situations like that, you use an array to store that list. Let me show you how. So here I'm going to declare another variable called selected colors. Note that I'm using a meaningful name. I don't have SC or some other weird name. Selected colors. Now we can initialize this and set it to an empty array. So these square brackets are what we call array literal, and they indicate an empty array. Now we can initialize this array and add a couple of items like red and blue. Let's log this on the console. So console, the log, selected colors. Save the changes. So here's our array with 2 elements. We can expand that. Note that each element has an index, and that determines the position of that element in the array. So the index of the first element is 0, and the index of the second element is 1. So if you want to access an element in an array, we use this index. Here's how. For example, let's say you want to display the first element in this array. You use the square brackets and then specify the index. Save the changes, and now we have red. Now, earlier I told you that JavaScript is a dynamic language, so the type of variables can change at runtime. The same principle applies to our arrays. So the lengths of arrays, as well as the type of objects we have in an array, are dynamic. They can change. So on line 2, we initialize this array with 2 elements, right? Now, on line 3, we can add another element to this array, so the array will expand. So let's say selected colors of 2. That means the third item in this array is going to be green. Now, let's display this array on the console. So we have an array with 3 elements. So the length is dynamic. It can change. Also, the type of objects we have in this array is dynamic. So unlike other programming languages where every item or every object in the array should have the same type, in JavaScript, we can store different types in an array. So we can make the last element a number. Save the changes. Now we have 2 strings and a number. So the objects in the array as well as the size of the array are dynamic. Now technically an array is an object. So just like the person object we defined in the last lecture, it has a bunch of key value pairs or properties that we can access using the dot notation. Let me prove that to you. So here on the console, let's look at the type of selected colors. So the type of this array is an object. So an array is an object in JavaScript. So here on line 4, we can look at the properties of this array or this object using the dot notation. Look, these are all the properties defined in arrays in JavaScript. So every time we declare an array using square brackets, that array will automatically receive these properties. We didn't explicitly define them. They're just somehow magically inherited from somewhere else. We're going to learn about that later when we talk about prototypes. Now in this lecture, we're going to look at one of these properties. That is the length property. This property returns the number of items or elements in an array. So save the changes. You can see we have 3 elements in this array. Now later in the course, we have a comprehensive section about arrays. You will learn about all kinds of operations you can perform on arrays. For now, all I want you to take away is that an array is a data structure that we use to represent a list of items.